So change is the theme for this month. And I went through a whole list of amazing people in this community, trying to decide who we would have come speak. And I actually had a great roster of 3 adults that I thought would be amazing to sit down with you all and discuss this topic. There's a lot that has been going on in the city, and the climate of the city has definitely changed, or evolved, I should say. And then what dawned on me was that with a lot of voices not being heard for such a long time in this city that are now emerging and now are being in the spotlight, part of that, the unheard voices, are the young people. And if you think back to last April when we had the uprising, its 1-year anniversary is coming up, a lot of people kind of overlooked how active and how vocal these young people were, who were quite aware of how how the uprising and the conflicts of inequity and systemic issues were affecting them. I think a lot of us underestimate the power that these young people have, and for me, it's beautiful to see a lot of young people in this community rise up to the occasion and join in the, I would say, in the fight for equality, the fight for voices to be heard, and to just show what they can do, and to show that they are ready to lead this community and lead this city. So that brought me to having 3 speakers. If you notice, we only have 2 speakers here. Our 3rd speaker, Michaela Gilliam Price, she actually fell ill. She has the flu. Her mom, who's wonderful, Zelda, told me last night. So she is focusing on self-care, which is very important. And she, #self-care, we should put that. And she is definitely focused on resting and getting better. So our well wishes to Michaela. But that does not deter from the amazing panel that we have here today with 2, and a special performance, but 2 amazing speakers. So what's going to happen is I'm going to give you guys bios of these 2 speakers, and they're kind of just going to take it over from there. I would like for you guys to really take this time to internalize their perspectives, listen to them speak, and if you have questions, tweet them, or if you really want to ask them in person, I will be here to moderate the Q&A. But I think we're all, I think it's going to be a great deal. So, our first speaker is Katie Arevalo. Katie is a junior at Baltimore Polytech Institute. Any Poly people here? Yay! You're our friends. I'll support Poly too. She is a youth organizer for the Baltimore Outdoor Project, a youth-run Baltimore-based organization where she works on projects such as community control and organizing students around standardized testing. She plans to study international relations and education in college. Her hopes for change in Baltimore are to see students empowered and leadership in education. Derek Ebert is Baltimore's former and first ever Youth Poet Laureate. He has recently published his first poetry book entitled Black Boy Archaeologist, exploring the boundaries of biracial identity, self-awareness, young heartache, all while trying to make sense of the world around him. Derek has had his poems published in American Short Fiction, the Baltimore Magazine, as well as the Poetry Society of America. Despite the accolades, Derek believes his greatest accomplishments are the moments when he can just be himself and achieve achievement he hopes everyone has the opportunity in feeling. So like I said before, they're going to take the stage and kind of take it on from here, and then we'll have a special performance, which Derek will introduce, and we'll have our Q&A. So without further ado, Katie and Derek.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
I had to find a creative way to get up this morning. This is new for me.
Okay, so I'm going to go through, just really quickly, the 3 topics that we're going to be addressing, just so you all know, but I'll bring them back up once we get there. So first, we're going to be talking a little bit about how me and Derek make change happen within our individual lines of work. After that, we're going to talk a little bit about ways that you should not be making change, like the wrong ways of making change. And then lastly, we'll cover how we use creativity in order to make that happen. So let's start with Derek. And
A lot of change this morning. It's just in the room. So just to reiterate, the first question is, what does change look like for the work that you do? And when I saw this question, I kind of split it into 2 parts. One, what does change look like in general, especially in the city of Baltimore? And then 2, what does change look like in the work I do? So I guess first, who watches the HDTV home channel? Raise your hands, anyone? No, just my mother? Y'all have a lot in common with my mother. Katie, do you watch the home channel? No, you don't? Okay, well, I find that the current look, when talking about change and speaking about change, I find it similar to renovating a house in a community that one would label as being poor. It's like, let's go in and let's make this home a great one. So other homes can be just as great as this house we're about to renovate. So, let's go into the kitchen and add an island. Let's, renovate the bathrooms, make them luxurious, maybe add an extra sink. Everything you would like in your dream house, right? And renovating a house, similar to being in a community, or in changing community, you have good intentions. There's always, I believe, there will always be good intentions for what you plan to do, especially for those living there. However, people sometimes aren't aware of the people they are also affecting. And so this, in part, kind of plays onto the fact of gentrification, as in, and I'm sorry for working with metaphor here, I'm a poet, so please bear with me. You do a good job of creating this now luxurious home in a poor community, and it's like, as an individual of that community, I would like to purchase that home, but then it's like, well, now you don't have enough money to afford it. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go somewhere else. And for me, that again, this is what change looks like. It's like, let's be progressive, but let's be progressive with a self-agenda. And I feel like those who try to do community work and aren't from the community often have this perspective of change. Let's help the community, although we do not live there. And so again, this is a lot of what progress in Baltimore looks like. And if you have resources, I often think, like, if you have resources to do good, then why not just do good and not expect anything in return? And so, I guess in addition to that, it's also about changing. How we see change right now is this progressive view. At least most of us think about it as being progressive. And then it's like, but for who? So even often, like, we have to change our perspective on how we see change. And then in the work I do as a spoken word artist, as well as a teaching artist, I teach for the Baltimore Leadership School for Young Women. For me, change looks like my students being honest with themselves, with their parents, with their teachers, and I mean, even just to society, with in a room full of people that they don't even know. I'm sure we're all familiar with the quote, "A comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there." And I find that when you are the most uncomfortable is not only when you're the most honest, but it's when actual change can start to occur. because you're in an unfamiliar territory. And so whenever there are discussions about their personal lives or racism or even sexual assault, they begin to make others who are listening to their poems, and even myself, change our perspectives on how we see Baltimore, or even how we see, someone else's life. And so, at least being a teaching artist and being a poet, I create safe space, especially within the classroom, where expression often feels like renovating a home inside of a community that often feels broken. And so that's one of the ways that I do change. Sorry for being deep.
Okay, so as Olivia said, I work for the Baltimore Algebra Project. I'm a youth organizer for them. So I'm not sure how many of you here are familiar with the Baltimore Algebra Project, but if there's one thing that you should know, we're completely youth-run and youth-owned. So just let that sink in for a second, because most people are like, what? Like, people 24 and under can control $750,000 and like allocate that to their communities? That's crazy, right?
Crazy.
I'm saying it. Yeah, so to me, change is about empowering youth, and it's about showing them that they have agency, and about reminding them that they have agency and that they should have control of their communities. They live in those communities, and they're the ones that are impacted by those communities, so they should be deciding what those communities look like. And I think that oftentimes we forget that youth don't know that. We assume that because we tell them, you're the next ones up, like, this is gonna be yours soon, take control of it, that's enough, but it's not. Like, we have to put a $250,000 organization in their hands and say, this is yours, and you do what you think your community needs with this, right? For like a few days, I think this was yesterday maybe, I was talking to we had a park meeting, and a lot of them were talking about like different ways to go about standing up to administration to tell them that we don't feel comfortable with this test, and they were more saying it in a way that was like, yeah, like, we should ask them this or that, or whatever. And I'm like, y'all don't realize that you all have so much power. Like it's literally in your hands. And if you grow the numbers, you can do whatever you want to do, right? And so I think that it's definitely about reminding us, youth, that we can sit in front of all of you all and speak and tell you all what we want, right? And demand those things, as opposed to, having adults up here telling you what it would have looked like for us to create change within our communities. Yeah, so I definitely focus on trying to empower people and myself. I think that's something that people always told me growing up. You're gonna have to know how to create change within yourself before you can create change in your community. And sometimes life will catch up with you and you'll have to do those mutually, and it's scary. But I think that it's empowering when you realize, I just learned about myself that I can be empowered, and I told the person next to me, you're powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like I have more to say on that, but I don't know. No, good job. So, we going on to the second question? Yeah. So the second question that we have is there a wrong way to do change? There is?
There is.
Adam, we gonna hear from you later. Katie, you want to go first?
Sure. So
right.
I believe in, I think that the people who should have control of certain things are the people who are socially located within that issue. So if we're speaking about schools, I think that students should have control. If we're speaking about communities, I think that the people in those communities should have control, not people in City Hall who are like, yeah, I've been down there once or twice, like, they're struggling, we should help, like, that's not enough. So I think that it's wrong when people who aren't located try to know, like, what's best for them. And I do believe that those people can help to provide funding or help to provide some form of guidance if they're like, oh, we've seen programs like this work before, you can look into them. But I think that the people who should be organizing the community and the people who should be deciding what those programs to better those communities or to better those schools, the people who should be deciding what that looks like are people who are there. Yeah, so I like to call it perspective speaking, like you speak from your perspective, otherwise stay out. But yeah, you can go.
Okay. I totally agree with that perspective as well. And I guess another like really weird and interesting metaphor. So I find when people who So basically this, people who aren't from the community that they try to engage in, it's almost like a knife in an electrical outlet. It's like, that's really, and I saw you laugh, good job, that makes me feel better about myself. Anyway, no, but it's like, that's really dramatic, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you don't necessarily belong in this space. That's not to say that we don't want you maybe next to the electrical outlet or below it or on the floor, whatever. We just don't want you helping or trying to assist within that community. And it's not to say that we don't appreciate you. It's not to say that we don't appreciate the resources that you have. It's just we need to be in charge. The people that belong there need to be in charge of that area. You and the other utensils, I'm getting too deep in the metaphor, but you and the other utensils can, go and educate the other utensils on why you should never go near the electrical outlet, because not only is it unsafe, it's too deep. Anyway, not only is it unsafe, but it's just like, let those who belong there, fix that and do what they have to do there. And so again, I really feel like those who have resources, have always the best intentions to help the city of Baltimore. It's just they go about it in the wrong way. They try to see it from their perspective. They try, it's back to how do they think that this change should be, even within like West Baltimore. And it's like, it's not about what you may think. You live in East Baltimore, you live in Charles Village. It's like, how often do you spend time in Edmonton Village? Like never. So then why are you there? Like, please give us money, we need the money. But it's real. It's like, if you want to invest, thank you. And again, like, we appreciate that, but don't try to tell us how to spend that money. Like, give it to one of the community leaders. They would definitely be able to help. Shout out to LBS. They do great work.
Also another thing is that that I've learned working with the Baltimore Algebra Project is that even when you are within that social location, you can still do it in the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So like, say when BAP is trying to organize something in a certain school, and you have students in BAP that go to that school, and then you also have, and since they're students, they know what it feels like to be there, and they know what's wrong with the situation, right? Even then, like, I find myself constantly having to remind myself and others, like, wait, we have to, like, take a vote in some way, or we have to, like, have a meeting first where, like, we invite people to come and discuss, like, what they're feeling, because individuals have perspectives that may not compare with the rest of the school or with the rest of the community. So just because you're in there doesn't mean that, like, you and your small little group of people can be like, this is what we feel is good for this community because we live here and this is what we don't like. You still have to be like, okay, let me have a community meeting, right, where we talk about the issues that are going on and we explore different ways to solve those issues. It has to be a community, it has to be a community decision, I think.
And what's really, so I'm thinking now to other experiences that I've had with just being an artist in Baltimore. It's really interesting when there are, like, say, panel discussions going on, or there are performances going on, and the people that are hosting it are like, yeah, Baltimore's in the house, and, like, we have everyone here from the community, and, like, say we're in this community. Where are the people that live in this community? Like, did you actually extend the invite to them? Did you do any promoting, within this area? If not, then the people sitting in front of me and the people I'm engaging with are not from here. They're often from Baltimore County or Harford County or, I don't know, any other counties. Maryland is huge. So it's always interesting. I really feel like in order to enact change, it starts with the individual, it starts with yourself, and it starts with even reaching out to just one other person and making that impact. It's, people always say go above and beyond, and I don't know if people actually take that seriously, or even, like, going out of your way. And I feel like even when having this discussion, a lot of people don't go out of their way. They stay they stay in their comfort zone, and they don't force themselves to be uncomfortable. And until you do that, I think that's when you'll fully understand, other people's perspectives and kind of see the picture as it is, and not from just your, like, little small tree in the, okay, I'm gonna stop with metaphors. Next question.
Okay. So the next question says, how do you use creativity to make change? Would you like me to start that one?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I like to share the stories of other people in BAP, because this is a part that really motivates me, I guess. So we have teachers that teach at schools, but they're through us, so they're not hired necessarily like through the city. They come through the Baltimore Algebra Project, and they're people who were once in our positions as youth organizers or tutors in schools. So they know us pretty well, and they know what BAP is about. So for example, some of the teachers teach at alternative schools, and so this is my favorite saying. A woman named Marilyn said this. She says, nobody wants to learn when they're hungry, right? And sometimes some of the most creative, this is what I've learned, sometimes some of the most creative things are the most basic things. And it's basic things that we've forgotten. And so like when a student goes into school and they're not learning, teachers are like, they don't care, right? Yeah. And then BAP has to be creative and say, hold up, let's look at the root of this. Is this person hungry? Is this person not sleeping somewhere? Did this person go through something last night that nobody asked them about, and that's why they don't want to pay attention to what I'm teaching them? Let me stop, let's be a community, and let's ask him what's wrong. Or let me step aside with him outside while everybody else is doing their classwork, and let me ask him if he wants me to buy him lunch. Because if that's a situation, teachers need to work as community for them. They can't just, like, oh, he doesn't want to learn, all right, sorry, okay, rest of the class. The rest of the class is important, but you have to be creative enough to know how to allow them to keep learning and also put aside time to make sure that that student is where they need to be. And I think that we often forget those little basic things, like is this child hungry or is this child homeless? And when we forget to ask those questions, or sometimes that can be abusive also asking those questions, but when we forget to find ways to address that, then we enter this really like risky ground of ignoring people's social locations and perpetuating a whole bunch of other type of pain, right? And I also think that specifically when tutoring, I've had to find very creative ways to go about things. Just because students don't learn in the same way, and schools have created this mentality where we all have to learn the exact same way. And so when students come to me and they're like, hey, I need help with this or that subject, and having studied through like debate, the ways that we interact with certain things that we read or certain things that we are taught by certain people, we'll feel a way about it, right? Like for example, textbooks and them being mostly white and the school being mostly Black and Latinx. It's kind of like, you're obviously gonna feel uncomfortable by that, especially when they dedicate like one little section to slavery and then they're like, bye, and like students are bound to feel uncomfortable with that. So one of the students came to me and she was like, hey, we have to like study this, and like, I don't get it. And she thought, in her mind, she was like, am I supposed to make flashcards? I'm just not learning it. Am I supposed to this or that? And like, I had to like break it down to her, you're feeling uncomfortable because they're not teaching it right. And that's such a like rare idea to them. Like they're like, what? No, that's my teacher. She taught it right. She knows what she's doing. She doesn't. Like, sorry, but she doesn't. And sometimes I think that not just being creative, but being bold enough to show your creativeness. Like being bold enough for me to say, sorry, your teacher isn't doing it right, risking that she would go back and tell the teacher that. And next year that might be my teacher, which would be weird, but. Yeah, and then having to tell her, me having to do my own research and find out different authors, like, I don't know, right? And here, read Frederick Douglass, read this or that. Like, this will help you understand what that meant. It's creative is scary, honestly, because sometimes you have to step over these boundaries that are like, I don't know where that'll take me in a few years.
That comfort zone, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Step out of it.
Like I was saying, nothing grows there, like I was saying. So I guess it's me now?
Yep.
You said a lot of good things, and I'm really mad. I really should have been taking notes. So I can be like, I'm going to talk about this, too, and this. But anyway, I really forgot what I was going to do first. Hold on. Give me a minute. I'm so serious right now. Oh, I remember. Y'all need to laugh at me. I'm being myself. So while preparing for this discussion, the whole time I was thinking, I was like at my computer, and I was just like, this idea of change, or like, how to create a better Baltimore, and it goes with your simplicity. When you were talking about simplicity, like doing better is not a hard thing. This change it's not complex at all. It's rather simple. If you at least put your mind to it, it's rather simple. It's not rocket science. I feel like what's really complex is people's intentions. And I mean, I know I keep going back to intentions, but it's like people's intentions on, why they want to do what they want to do in a community that does not reflect them. But interesting, even with this, when you're talking about education, I went to City. I was an IB and AP student. For those that don't know what IB is, it's International oh my God, the B is like baccalaureate. I always say the B wrong. Thank you. And I had like IB World History. And you're thinking like IB World History, you're gonna talk about world history. And I mean, again, we really only talked about Europe, like the European countries and some of the Asian countries. It's like, why don't we ever talk about like the history of the continent of Africa and go farther than just slavery? And my teacher's response, I can remember this because it kind of made me like low-key upset. She was like, well, you know, I felt like, you know, people need to learn this. It wasn't intentional or anything. It's just, I don't know, and as just like I can't really find the words, she couldn't find the words either to why she didn't choose. This was a conscious decision. Every year you choose this, you know, we look at the same places, her students look at the same places. It's like, you know, why not for once look at a different place, you know, learn about a different area. And so again, it goes back to, it's just as simple as just changing your daily routine or how you teach. And it's just like, again, this thing of change is just, it's simple. Simple. Jeez, I forgot where I was gonna go. Oh, I remember. Okay, so with the organization, the nonprofit I'm part of, Do More, and when talking about how do we use creativity to make change, we utilize the form of slam poetry. Raise your hand if you don't know what slam poetry is. Everyone knows what slam poetry is. Wonderful. So people often, I mean, people understand like, yeah, slam poetry is competitive, you know, judges, scores, if you win, you get a title. Like I had Youth Poet Laureate title, and then there's the second Youth Poet Laureate over there. But so slam, you know, it's for something, right? And in all reality, I mean, slam is just a trick. Competition is just, it's a trick. It's a game we play, at least for our students, where it's like if you are not only the most creative, but the most honest and the most open, and you express your story and you actually you open up, you know, it could get you the points. And so a lot of people are like, I mean, in all reality, you can't put points, because when slam, you know, you apply 1 to 10. It's like you can't put a number, you can't rate a poem that a student wrote that talked about how their uncle abused them or what it's like to deal with police brutality. You can't rate that poem. There's no way at all. And so, I mean, that's at least how Do More, we throw Louder Than a Bomb it's a regional festival that we hold every year, and it's going to be at MICA this year. If you want to come to it, I would suggest you do, and I can tell you more about it when this is over. So we have programs in about 20 high schools all over the city of Baltimore, and we have teaching artists like myself go into these schools, you know, and prepare them for the competition. And I'm telling you, like, the stories that these students come up with, you would just be blown away by all of the things that they go through. And even for my middle school children, it's like, you're only like, what, 12? And you already have a deeper perspective on the world than me. It's insane. It really is. And so we get them into these competitions, and you know, they think that like, yeah, we're gonna try to be number one, but in all reality, it's not about the title. You know, it's not about the points at all. It's about you being honest with yourself and coming out with, you know, your deepest, darkest fears and expressing that. And so, you know, that's one of the ways that at least my organization, we are kind of creative, but you know, more so like tricking people. So I don't know if that parallels, then awesome. But so what we're gonna do right now, I'm gonna actually have the second Youth Poet Laureate, Hannah Sawyer. She is a sophomore at Morgan State University, and she's absolutely amazing. She's a phenomenal poet, and she's my sister. So not like blood, but you know, like mentor, mentee. Anyway, so I'm gonna bring Hannah up now so she can perform a poem for you all. Please, round of applause for Hannah.
Hi everyone. This is a poem I wrote about my father. He's the strongest person I know, so. My father is a refugee from Freetown, Sierra Leone. Freetown is the largest city within Sierra Leone, originally the home of freed slaves. Foolish is the American that believes us a lone man seeks freedom when it's already instilled in him. Naive is the Salone man that believes America loves him for anything other than a show. They want your taxes, want your hands, want your children, but scoff at your tradition, at your customs, at your beliefs. Salone was built on the belief that slaves should be free. America was built on the belief that freed men should be enslaved. America, you are no savior. You cannot grant the freed man freedom. You cannot give a Salone man access to your land and believe you are showing him liberty. We already know what that air feels like. No wonder my father says the air here feels uncomfortable. So when an immigrant speaks of feeling uncomfortable, just know you are in the presence of man that knows what the sting of assimilation is when two elephants are fighting. Don't you know it's the grass that suffers? So when your forefathers fought and murdered the people that originally owned this forsaken land, just know it hasn't recovered since. This land still echoes their scream. This ground has only been used as imprisonment. Its constitution is the greatest captivity narrative, and it's still being written. We got wannabe politicians saying they want to make America great again, but have you ever known America to do anything for the foreign man? Have we ever not been bullies? Ever not been appropriators? Ever not been thieves? America, this land is just as foreign to you as it is to my father. My father is a refugee from Freetown, Sierra Leone. I am a girl born in the States whose family hails from Salone. I used to try to wash those parts of myself. Thought if I could scrub off that ugly, that this liberated land would love me. When I was younger, my father used to look at me and say, "Me na Salone man, but you na American Pekin." Translation, he is a Sierra Leonean man, but I am an American child. Translation, I hold all of the freedom, all of the time to laugh, the papers, the privilege. I used to be ashamed of him, wanted to rid of his accent, our dialect, his alien. I recently realized the only person I should have been ashamed of was myself. And lately he's been telling me, "You're not American, but still, you Salone woman." Translation, I am an American, but this blood still boils with the same diamond Salone soil does. Translation, still privileged, still enslaved, still proud, still discriminated, still the option to pick and choose.